Okay, welcome to 11:58, week 6. This is our second project. Major connector will be a lingual apron with two G clasps on 3/4 and 4/4. Similar to project 1, except the major connector is different. So that will require something different in the wax up. So I would start again with the lingual bar and try to pre-shape it, because if the wax patterns are a little bit cold, then sometimes they split or crack. Again, try not to ride too far up on the lingual of 3/4 and 4/4. That's got to stay down, maintain that distance, watch the cingulum, lingual frenum. And this will go from internal finishing line to internal finishing line to try to make it symmetrical. Mine is slightly not, so I'll correct it. Now I've already dried the model and sprayed the model and hardened it. And you'll notice with the hydrocolloid duplication, it may be a little bit more, or a little softer, I guess because of the introduction of more water for the hydrocolloid duplication process. So once I'm satisfied with its location, I'll take my surgical knife and take the length and end off. Now if I make a few nicks here, it's not going to be too drastic, because I'm going to use this lingual bar as the base of my lingual apron. If you take some continuing education courses on partial denture wax up, possibly they will not use this. I'm just using this to reinforce our learning. Now where we're going to differ here is I'm going to heat up my spatula and I'm going to seal the top part of the bar right to the model. And I'm going to flow a little bit of this bar wax superior to the bar, kind of starting off my lingual apron wax up. I'm going to use some of this pattern in the major connector. As you can see, it's kind of getting elongated here. It's approaching the gingival margin. And again, I think like dentures or partial dentures or crown and bridge, really the challenge, I think, for the beginner is the manipulation of the wax. Also, to know which destination you're going. You have to have a final mental image of what you'd like to have the finished product look like, so you can get there faster. Now, I've also, if you've noticed, sealed the inferior part of the bar too, right to the model, underneath. And if you've made a little bit of a mess, you can go with your carver and clean up this section. Once I've sealed the bar, I'm going to flame it slightly. This will be the support strength for my apron. If I've taken a little too much there, I'm going to make it a little bit longer. Now, I think I'm using a different spatula. So once again, I'm not using the inlay wax, I'm using the pattern wax. I'm going to shape and clean up a little bit of the splots of wax that I've melted below and reshape the inferior part of my lingual apron nice and clean. Now I think you may have been started trimming the next one, so you'll see that this is a real big job trimming the chrome. And we're going through a lot of discs and stones and carbides and heating up. That major connector gets pretty warm on our fingers. Okay, so I've put like I said, the bottom part of my apron, and I'm using a lingual bar to do so. I think some seasoned veterans might say, well, that's pretty thick, but I've melted a bit of it to kind of use it as part of the base of the bar. Next, I'm going to bring some free-flowing pattern wax and go right up to the lingual gingival margin of all the anterior teeth. Won't quite go on the teeth yet. I'll save that for my pattern wax apron, and we'll use a stippled one, which will be a lot easier for us than actually creating a smooth major connector, which is also another possibility. But for this project here, we'll use a stippled pattern wax for the major connector apron. So I'm just going up, very thin wax, thin layer, up to the lingual gingival margin. Excuse me. Now on the bicuspid, I may creep up onto the tooth a bit because it's going to be a little bit higher. Just a touch. And then now I have to flow the bar wax and the little addition of wax together, so it's there's not a step or a jump or a bump or a depression. Let's try to make it homogeneous, like it was all in one piece. And I'm just going up to the lingual gingival margin, nice and smooth. I'm using an alcohol torch to help me out here. And again, that's dangerous, that alcohol torch. Be really careful with that. It'll just spread wax. I got a couple of void bubbles there in my wax. It'll creep up just onto the canine, just below the cingulum of the anterior teeth. Feather edge, nice and smooth. Really heating up the wax so there's no voids. So it's the my refractory model. Right in here. Now we know there's going to be a G-clasp and a mesial-occlusal rest, but we can add that later. If you wish, though, you know what? While we're here, why don't we add the mesial-occlusal rest of 3-4 and 4-4? A lot neater than I just did, though, please. If you've gone over the margins of the rest, please make a little depression here and carve out, clean up the overextensions of the rest. You'll find that a lot easier to trim, but make sure there's no voids between the margins of the rest and the refractory model. Okay, I think that's similar to what we've done before, except we've added a little bit more wax. I may taper this down, reduce the thickness just a touch. I didn't use enough of that bar for my apron there. And then I'll flame that nice and smooth one more time. Excuse me. Similar to the first one, we'll use our either small or large grid retention. I'm just going to take the outside border off because that's like a thick row of wax here that it's been sprayed on when they're creating the pattern on the sheet. So maybe I'll just take all the edges off because I don't really need those. Some people may utilize them. We will not. Estimate the length here you have from your block out. And then this grid retention will start just above the bottom of that bar, straight back. And now trim the wax pattern grid retention right at the end of the block out. This is one way of doing it where I created the block out to the extension of the mesh retention, and then I'm going to add my tissue stop hanging off the end of that, touching the tissue. Now keep in mind, now anticipating there's a setup of 5, 6, 7. I don't need to have this mesh lattice retention into the sulcus. This is just a mechanical retention for my prosthetic denture base, prosthetic teeth and acrylic denture base. Now, while I have the grid retention, I might as well just do the other side. Again, just slightly above the inferior portion of that bar. Surgerize right where my block out is, surgerize. Use your scalpel and cut the rest of the pattern off, and then just at the height of the ridge on the buccal side. Possibly on the lingual, you can create a little rounded. You can see that the lingual side is rounding up. I've taken the corner off. I just don't like 90-degree turns in any of the dentures or partial dentures or wax up. There's really nothing worse than something rigid, 90 degrees. So I'm going to take my 22 gauge wax and I'm going to outline an extension from the lingual bar right underneath now, not on top, underneath my mesh lattice retention. This is two things. It's going to help in casting, flowability, and it's also going to help in strength. It's also going to protect your fingers when you're holding it, trimming, because you won't have a barbs on the lingual side, just on the buccal side. Now, I've put the blue 22 gauge wax underneath, and then I'm going to go and seal it to the mesh lattice retention.